Hello everybody, welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
I didn't do anything this weekend, James, and I just feel like
What's new?
I feel like I want to just get it out there at the beginning that it's not because I forgot or wasn't playing. I just didn't feel compelled that any of the transfers that I wanted to make were particularly going to be worth it. And I am still playing. I just didn't make any moves this week, James.
How was your week?
80 points.
It's okay.
I don't know what that does for the game week. 80 points. I think like many captains Haaland on the Saturday.
It's very difficult not to at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, I owned Rodri, which was a cheeky little 8-pointer because he picked up an assist.
He did for Mahrez's goal.
Which was nice. And Cancelo's 19 points.
Just the 19.
Tidy. Unlike many, I own Harry Kane, who I don't think his ownership's off the charts. 6 points, which is quite decent. David Raya, -2.
Ouch.
What can you do?
Not a lot. Kane's in over 50% of the top 1,000, by the way.
That's
so
not too bad.
Well, it's pretty big, actually.
Yeah,
it's bigger than I thought it was.
So didn't do too badly there. And also, Moise Caicedo looked like he was just on for a 2-pointer, but in the end ended up with passing tier 2, mate, 5-pointers. So I'm very happy with that because he's been flirting with exiting my team at any point.
I would be keeping a real close eye on that Friday night against Brentford. The problem is, as I say a lot on this podcast, you do get anomalies in terms of passing tiers from defensive players and midfield players against Tottenham.
Yep.
So it could be, like McAllister was over 100, mate.
Wow.
So it could be that it's an anomaly. But it might be that we've got a new manager, right? We're judging it against Liverpool and Tottenham, two very different teams in terms of stylistically. But keep an eye on that. I'd arguably, it'd be a case to say maybe, should he hit it against Brentford, and he might, you just think, oh, he's cheap enough.
This is the problem I have with Moise Caicedo is the price, right? 6.7 million. Where the hell do I go because he's so cheap? So he may end up sticking around for a little while now.
You still got Pauline, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And on the Sunday, moving on, I captained Jesus because I didn't own Mo Salah. I think a lot of people might have gone Mo Salah.
You got Bowen?
I have Bowen. I didn't captain Bowen. But I own him. So 10 points off Bowen, 14 with the captaincy of Jesus. Only the 2 points of Van Dijk, which he's one that we should chat about because he's becoming a bit of a liability. And Paulinho.
Wow, clip that.
Well, I mean, both for Liverpool and for my Sky Fantasy Football team, maybe the argument could be made. And Paulinho, man, the guy was one tackle off a tackle tier. So, again, so cheap that I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Neco Williams, like many, for the Monday, benched. But yeah, decent overall, 80 points, no transfers used. I had looked at going to Zaha. I definitely wanted to go to Zaha, but
why didn't you?
I missed the daisy chain from Jesus to Maddison to Zaha, right?
Yeah.
So then I can't go Jesus to Zaha on the same day that they're both playing.
Given,
So I didn't do that. So then who do I move on? The only other person that I could move on, there was two that I could move on. Rodri. But the guy, this is this classic example where he's just given me, flashed a bit of leg. Given me an assist, and I'm like, you know what? He's so consistent with his 5 points, and then he's chucked the assist in. Do I really want to sell him for Wilf Zaha, even though there's a fixture gain? Rodri's so consistent. I'm going to want him back for the last 3 games before the World Cup.
Are you? What price is Rodri?
9.1.
Yeah. Just on City, just very briefly, what I mentioned, there's been a few recently where people have had decent coverage and decent points, and you're going, why have I gone down in rank here? This was a bit of a conversation on our Slack at the weekend and the weekend prior. Phil Foden, mate.
Yeah, he's a beast at the moment.
0.1 more, absolutely flying. 41 points in his last 3 games. He's in 37.2% of the top 1,000 now, so it's growing.
Yeah, again, I don't think many people are going in now because of Liverpool and the blank, but come the other side...
I wouldn't let that shit put me off right now.
Come the other side is definitely one to consider. The other one I could have sold was Harry Kane. I've got no plans to captain Harry Kane, but with Everton at home this weekend on the Saturday, It just didn't make any sense for me to make any moves. There was no fixture gain to be had.
Who are you captaining Saturday?
At the moment, it may well be Harry Kane.
I would have thought so if you won't, yeah.
But I've also got a few other options there. But just looking at it, I think it will be Harry Kane. So, 80 points I'll take with no transfers used. Still 47 of these fucking transfers.
Rank overall?
6,700, which is up from 7,900. So, a decent rise.
If you weren't so kamikaze, I think you could win this.
I'd be fucking... If I'd have captained James Maddison and bought him, I would be a couple of transfers down, but I'd be well up to... I'd be up into the top 2,000. And I didn't captain Jesus on the first day of the season as well, did I? Fuck it.
Yeah. What was that? 2 points that cost you?
Yeah, but still, every point counts, mate.
73 for myself. I did buy Wilfried Zaha on Sunday for Eric Dyer. I captained Mo on Sunday over Bowen and Zaha. That didn't work out. Captain Haaland Saturday. 19 for Cancelo. Bowen 10. Tony 6. The wee has spam me a lot. Neco Williams Monday night. I'd like to thank Steve Cooper for leaving him on the bench. Because when I saw that, I thought, I'm going to get 1 times 2 here rather than minus 1 times 2. So, his best return for 5 weeks. Obviously, Serge Aurier came in the team for him. It's just worth saying, and I mentioned this on the podcast we did yesterday at the end, that Aurier won't play Wolves and Brighton, I don't think. Be very, very surprised. That said, I think he's an easy move on for me now. I was debating going Williams to Dunk last Saturday, even with the captaincy. I didn't add anything to Forest Villa. There was nothing overly interesting me. Williams did actually get 2 tackles in the half hour he was on the pitch. And that's part of my thinking. If something happens and he does get on the pitch, like he's capable of racking that up quite quickly, might do me the job. But yeah, intention is obviously to sell now. And my plan is to move him to one of Lewis Dunk or Adam Webster on Friday. And I haven't made the decision yet. Now, we've discussed this previously. 0.5 more for Dunk over Webster is worth it. And it absolutely is. But the decision at the moment is being influenced a little bit by James Maddison, now on 4 yellow cards. There isn't really a come-off point for Maddison, other than this Sunday, if he gets booked. He's on 4 yellows, so obviously if he gets another booking suspension. Now, I don't want to sell him, and I don't want him to get booked this weekend, because I want to captain him against Leeds next Thursday, most likely. But should he pick up that 5th yellow on Saturday, he's expendable for me, I think. And going Webster offers a chain of that 0.5 that might allow me to get to Sonny rather than something else. It's as it stands, I'm not likely to do that. I'm still likely to go to Dunk. And the kind of plan at the moment would be, if Maddison got booked, to move him to Phil Foden. Yeah, I'm not bothered about playing Sunday. And then Gabriel Jesus. The problem also, however, is that if I go to Dunk, because I want to sell Ivan Toney after Friday night, I can't quite get Toney to Jesus.
On the way back.
So it might be... I'm just looking at setting my team up for the end here now, I think. And I think if I make those 3 moves, Williams to Webster, Toney to Jesus, and Maddison to Foden whenever the booking comes, then I think that might be me set for the run-in and let it go, which would leave me on 32 transfers going into the World Cup. Obviously, inevitably, I'll have an injury or something, and there's long enough left that you'll want to change something. But that might be me near enough setting myself up, I think. So I haven't quite made that decision. I think, look, we have to treat Foden as a very, very serious option right now, in spite of the fact you're not going to captain him over Haaland unless... I think I'd still struggle to captain Foden over Cancelo, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Because Cancelo can do what he did last Saturday, right? And if Haaland hadn't been in the team and would have been aware of that at the weekend previously, most of us would have been captain Cancelo last Saturday. But I just think he's absolutely on fire. I look at them last 4 fixtures after Liverpool as well. I think, yeah, that's pretty decent. So Phil Foden right on radar. I think going back to Jesus this Sunday, he's looking a more and more logical decision for me, I think, Suj.
Despite the gap.
Despite the gap, yeah. Because I think as well, I'd captain either him or Saliba against Southampton. I'd captain either him or Saliba against Forest following Sunday. So it might just be, I go, yeah, do you know what? I'm possibly going to go back here. It just looks, it's the right option, I think, from the money point of view. Now, there is something that changes that completely, is the original plans go Tony to Mitrovic. Now, going Tony to Mitrovic opens it up where I could go Maddison to Son if the time's right at some point as well. But if Maddison gets booked Saturday, particularly, that feels a bit annoying. Then I'm going into Son for Manchester United away. And then Son and Maddison would both play on the same day at Sunday. So my only game would be Manchester United away. And I wouldn't overly fancy Sonny to do anything in there. I'd be just short of Harry Kane. So a few different options. I think, by the way, as it stands, judging by what I saw at the weekend, Tony might actually be the best captaincy on Friday. Because I don't think Brighton will keep a clean sheet. I do think Duncan Webster will hit.
Brighton will win.
I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet. I think Duncan Webster will hit Parsons here, and I don't think there'll be too much of a problem about it. But I'm not sure there'll be anything else. I'm not sure the clean sheet will be there to go with it.
I'm tempted to go Casado over Raya.
For captaincy?
I don't think Raya will keep a clean sheet.
No, I agree with that as well.
Yeah, I think Casado's more likely to pick up a tier than.
But I think that's one you look at it and what's the
ceiling?
Yeah, Raya clean sheet there could comfortably be 22, couldn't it?
Yeah, I just don't see it.
And they do overdo it. You've seen that on Saturday against my team. They do overdo it in front of goal. So if Brentford get in front, and particularly if maybe they go with a back five, which I think the template's probably been set to say that maybe the best way to play against Brighton, then you could be in there. I would captain Raya over Casado, mate.
Let's have a look at the games from the weekend, shall we? Any kind of talking points that may come up, because there is discussion around certain teams. I'm interested in what you're going to do about Tottenham and Liverpool, for example, as two teams, and whether you're even bothered about having any of those assets. And yeah, any kind of interesting things that came up. We'll cover off captaincy for this weekend, and then we can get into some questions that we've had in on Twitter as well.
Daka back in the team and scored, and he's at an interesting price point at 7.6. He's obviously got a 12-pointer against Brighton, despite the fact they got well beat. He scored and hit shots here. He got shots here at Tottenham, despite the 6-2 defeat. He scored against Forest as a substitute, and he's obviously scored against Bournemouth at the weekend and also hit shots here. So he's hit shots here in 2 of their last 3 defeats as well, which is quite impressive. But I feel like he's avoidable for Sky because, as we discussed on Monday's pod, I think Jamie Vardy could play at pretty much any point, right? Faze and Evans both hit passing tier. And having reflected on the big conversation we had about Leicester prior to the Monday night game against Nottingham Forest, I'm not sure now if it's justifiable to pay the little extra for Johnny Evans over Faze, who's a little bit cheaper at 7.6. Bournemouth, interestingly, we've spoken about this a few times about the defensive players potentially getting passing tiers. Metham and Senesi were really close again. Metham is 6.5, Senesi is 6.6. They weren't far off. Metham had slightly more, 54 to 49. Chelsea, there were passing tiers for Chalobah and Koulibaly. They played a back 4. But then it changed again last night in the Champions League, so we're going between 4s and 3s. Reece James, we think, got injured. Well, in fact, that's not true. We know he got injured last night. We don't know the prognosis of how bad that may or may not be at the moment. Wolves had a lot of the ball. Again, I think they're around about 7th in the league for possession so far this season. Max Kilman is 8 million. And they do have some fixtures coming up where I see passing tiers and I see clean sheets. Their problem is going the other way. And I don't think Max Kilman is arguably not a bad get if you want to chain off of perhaps a Brentford or a Brighton player after the Friday night game. Mason Mount's numbers have looked quite good so far under Graham Potter. 5 chances created at the weekend, 2 assists. He is 9.5. I don't think I could justify paying extra for him. They play Sunday, so he's a good entry point. But I would be going to Foden, I think. I don't see where I'd captain a Chelsea player in what's left. So I think I'd still be going for Foden over him currently. For Manchester City, there were passing tiers for Akanji, Diaz, Aki, Cancelo despite 70 minutes, Rodri, Bernardo Silva. Foden hit shot tier, goal and assist despite playing under an hour. Great return for him. Only the goal for Erling Haaland, mass disappointment. I wouldn't worry about your Man City players on Sunday. We'll probably talk about it a bit more, but I intend to captain Haaland on Sunday at Liverpool with the way they're defending at the moment. And wouldn't overly overthink that. I think there are certain times where you may feel in the future that you want to go Cancelo over Haaland against perhaps teams that may put up a real low block or something. This doesn't feel like one of them. I don't expect City to keep a clean sheet at the weekend either. I do think, even despite the fixture and despite the fact that they have a midweek fixture missing Manchester City, that Foden is a reasonable get now on Sunday. Many of you listening will already be on. Well done. For Southampton, interestingly...
Can I just ask you, sorry, about Kanji? 8 million. He's playing week in, week out.
I think he plays at the weekend. I think he's first choice at the moment.
And he's versatile.
He is versatile. He played right back at the weekend. Obviously, Cancelo played left back. I think Cancelo may play right back at Liverpool, and I think Nathan Ake will probably play left back. I just think there's doubt there.
Okay.
I think know the risk is all I'd say. And I'd also argue, are you expecting anything on Sunday? Like, I wouldn't overly expect passing tiers from the City guys on Sunday either against Liverpool. That said, do you remember a conversation we had about Bournemouth's passing numbers at City after game week 2 when they lost 4-0? Same score at the weekend for Southampton. Salisu, 46 passes. Bella Kotchot, 41. This is a really strange growing trend of centre-backs not hitting passing tiers against Man City, but having a lot more than what we would anticipate in terms of passing numbers. And I think that stems from pressing is a little bit more difficult for City at the moment, partly because of Haaland, ironically. But no interest in Southampton at the moment. Bruno Guimaraes with a nice little haul at the weekend. Shot tier, tackle tier, 2 goals for a nice 18-pointer. It's a nice double-point haul for Almiron as well. It was only 7 million. I think Guimaraes, the problem remains what it has done for most of the season is it's 8.3. There are other good assets at similar value. I don't know when I'm going to stick the armband on him. That would be my take at the moment. And it has been a while since we've had this off him. That's the first time this season he's scored more than 5. If you remember in pre-season, we'd said that every game he'd started, he'd hit something. Yep. Be it a goal, assist, a shot tier, tackle tier, passing tier. He's an absolutely brilliant player. And I think subject to how the TV layout is, he could be a player that's really popular after the break. I don't think so much now. For Brentford, Mataya Shensen hit 48 passes, which is a little bit notable. He played in a deeper position at the weekend. 0.4% owns, 7 million. I wouldn't go there if you were thinking, oh, that's an increase. There might be more against Brighton. I wouldn't expect it. I would expect Janelt to come into the team. I also think, as I've said to you previously on other shows, Serge, until Norgard's back, I don't see many clean sheets in them, which, yes, is notable for you with Raya on Friday night, but I would go a Raya over a Casado.
Okay.
I think a Raya over a Dunk or Webster is a more difficult call. I'd probably go Raya over McAllister, who himself had 104 passes against Tottenham at the moment, doing extremely well, 7.4. Also hit tackle tier 1. Casado's, just as you said, got in, but 81 passes, Serge, is big. Interestingly, Webster did have a little bit more than Dunk. This actually turned into the opposite way, where quite often we see centre-backs get really high numbers against Tottenham that we don't expect. Brighton, I think, were on par for what we expected. The midfield 2, as in the 2 6s, were a lot higher than what we'd expect. Pierre Oyberg hit passing tier for Tottenham, and Bentancur 6 tackles as well. Those 2 are ticking over not too badly at all. I I think obviously Tottenham will be popular for captaincy. Saturday, I'd be very surprised if Harry Kane is not the most captain. For Crystal Palace, really interesting one this on the passing numbers against Leeds. Joachim Anderson 31, Mark Gay 52.
Oh, wow. That's a real disparity.
It is. It's unusual. I don't know if part of that was, as I'd said to you on Monday, Leeds pressed really well in the opening half hour or so. And then Palace started to bypass things a little bit more. Sure. And Anderson is a really good long passer. Yep. Gay, not so much. Gay's a lot shorter. It could also be, and I spoke about this after the game against Arsenal, where Anderson played really well despite the fact they lost. And his direct balls gave Arsenal a problem. And I said to you then, I wonder if teams might start looking at this and going, do you know what, we're going to overcompensate for this.
Stop him doing
and force it that side. And Bamford, who obviously started, is one of the best in the league at separating centre-backs and making sure they don't just pass it between them from side to side. You may actually see that he'll do that if he starts again to Saliba and Gabriel on Sunday. Wouldn't overly expect passing tiers for those two in that fixture either. Goal for Pascal Struijk and tackle tiers. He's ticking over really nicely, actually, Pascal Struijk at 6.9. Tyler Adams back in the tackles as well with 5, and also comfortably leads highest for passes at the weekend. No, it was only 40. Gianluca Scamacca, Suj, talk to me. Potential asset here or not?
I think at 7.9, yes. And I think it's, when I was looking at it, it's the shot tier potential, because he likes the shot in and outside the box. He's a pretty good finisher, and he's headed targets. The headed attempts that he's had have always been generally on target. He'll work the keeper. So do I think Scamacca's good for shot tier? I think, yeah. And he's a good price at 7.9, and I think he's first choice ahead of Antonio. So if it works for you, then I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't know who want to double up with Bowen and Scamacca, but I think at 7.9, there's tier points in him.
I think I'd look at it, and this is an example. So he's obviously similar price to Tony. So if you might be looking at that move this Sunday, I would say, if I was thinking about that move, I honestly would wait. I'd wait till the Monday night game that West Ham have with Bournemouth on Monday the 24th.
That's only 4 games into the end of the season.
You're basically then, if you hold, you're going Tony versus Chelsea at home and Villa away versus Scamacca, Southampton away and Liverpool away. So I still think Tony would have the best of it of the next 2, for an example. So I think Scamacca, we'll speak about a lot more once we obviously build up to that Bournemouth game. Jared Bowen, we thought was on pens and did hit shots here and obviously scored. There were passes for Declan Rice and Tim Ream. Paulinho one-off tackles.
I don't know if it's relevant, but 3 of the last 4 from that Bournemouth game are home fixtures for West Ham. You've got Bournemouth, Palace, Leicester as your last 3 home games before the World Cup. I could see myself going in for Scamacca before the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that is a really interesting price at 7.9. I think that's one really, really to keep on radar. His ownership's low at the moment. If you're on, great. But I do think if you're interested, for the majority of cases, it would make more sense to wait for Monday the 24th, subject to injuries, etc. Arsenal, Liverpool, you mentioned obviously Van Dijk in passing again, 66. I think it's only once now he hasn't hit passing tier this season. At some point this season, we will blink and Van Dijk will have like 60 points in 5 games. It will be like 10, 10, 10, 10, 20, something like that, mate. Honestly, maybe not 20, but that will happen. Where suddenly they have a run of clean sheets, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be now.
It is a frustration, I'm not going to lie, but the reason
I would definitely hold him if you have him.
Yeah. The reason he's sticking around, though, also is because I have no other Liverpool coverage. If I had a Mo or a Trent or something, well, maybe Trent not so much now with the injury, but if I had Mo Salah, I think Van Dijk would be expendable. But I want to always have that Liverpool captaincy option up my sleeve, and Van Dijk's the second best behind Mo.
Yeah, and there still are. And actually for Van Dijk, it might even be one that doesn't look obvious, away to Tottenham Sunday the 6th of November. We've said that's a really, really difficult day for captaincy. But actually, ironically, if you got to that point and fancied Van Dijk or Liverpool for the clean sheet, subject to however Tottenham and Liverpool are playing when you get there, you can bet your life Van Dijk will probably hit the passing tier in that one. Yep. Also, you've obviously got West Ham at home Wednesday night, and I think Liverpool do look best for captaincy on Wednesday. For Arsenal, Saka doing great, big haul from him, 17 points. Another 11 for Martinelli, who's doing really well. I feel like he's a player we haven't spoke about much, Suj, yet he's in 50% of teams.
Martinelli.
8 million, yep, great value. Doing really, really well at the moment. Saka is 9.5. I don't think that's justifiable, particularly despite being on pens to pay the extra versus Martinelli if you want to go back in for Arsenal for this Sunday. I think in most cases, probably wait the extra week. If I'm looking to move it from Tony, it's probably one where I go now, I think. Liverpool, otherwise, I wouldn't be going into them this week. If you've got Trent, you obviously need to sell. What's Trent's ownership, top thousands? 1.5%. You can't believe you'd have been saying that, actually.
Wow.
Jesus is obviously ticking over really nicely as well, another 7-pointer. Lisandro Martinez hit tier 2 passing at the weekend. We said he was ticking over. Victor Lindelof, who stood in for Rafael Varane, I don't think he'll stay in the team, also hit passing tier, performed well. It was a bit grim for United at the end, but they were thoroughly deserving winners. Martinez is still in under 1% of teams, 8.3. Everton assets, I don't think you're not on radar at the moment. Patterson's injured, would probably be the one if you were. You do have a good swing of fixtures coming up, but no real entry point unless you want to go in away to Newcastle on Wednesday night. Anthony Gordon is obviously suspended for the trip to Tottenham. And Forest Villa, there was passing tier for Mings and Konsa at Forest, which I think bodes well, particularly say for the Brighton defensive players next Tuesday night, who I think will probably get the majority of favouritism versus Zaha against Wolves next Tuesday night. There was tackle tier for Buendia and Ramsey. Forest players is an absolute mess, guessing the team at the moment. So Lewis O'Brien, I know a few have had, was in the team, out the team, in the team, out the team. It's just a bit messy. I think whatever you've got, other than Williams, you probably hold on till next Wednesday, I would guess, in most cases. For me, I think I've got the money in the bank. Get rid.
Okie dokie. Are you planning to get any more Liverpool for the run-in, or do you think they're just in that bad a way at the moment that you can just avoid?
I am conscious that I think, as bad as they've been, that sort of run that I speak about for Van Dijk could be there for the last 5 fixtures. But the answer to your question is probably no, Suj. I have Mo Salah, who's obviously not doing anything at the moment, to be honest, but I'm not moving that at the moment. His best captaincy, I think, Wednesday the 19th still, considering the defensive issues. It is another one, though, with Van Dijk. Like, I think you captained Van Dijk Wednesday night, didn't you, Suj? Next week. He'll hit passing tier against you.
Yep.
The other problem with Mo Salah is the close proximity of the games is a little bit of a concern as well. With playing City Sunday afternoon, West Ham Wednesday night, and then Nottingham Forest is the lunchtime kickoff the following Saturday. And it might even be, say if Maddison hasn't picked up this magical booking, that I landed on Saturday 22nd, saw Salah wasn't in the team against Forest and went, I'm going Foden now.
Right.
It's a possibility. Because I'm not convinced he'll start that fixture, actually, despite the fact they've obviously got growing injury problems with Diaz now out as well. But I think he could look at Forest and go, I'll play Elliott, I'll play Carvalho. I think that's a possibility.
Okay.
So he's arguably expendable, but not till after the West Ham game, I don't think, Salah.
And you don't have any Spurs at the moment either, having sold
No.
Eric Dyer. Now, Everton at home, okay, then United away, but then Newcastle at home, Bournemouth. That Everton, Bournemouth, Leeds, and Newcastle at home, I think, are 4 decent fixtures out of your last 6. United away is always tough. And
Yeah,
Liverpool
it's part why, like I said, is looking at this option and going, can I force in like Son or Kane, for example? I have looked at routes of doing it. Just think when I look at it on paper and go, if I'm looking at an option of going Son, what's the better option? Let's do that. Son and Mitrovic or Foden and Jesus right now?
Son and Mitrovic or Foden and Jesus? Foden and Jesus.
It's the
all
point,
day long.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Are we talking about a similar situation in Sky here that we talked about in FPL, where the premiums, like some of the mid-price players at 8-9 million are performing as well as premiums, and you're happy to put the armband on? So Kevin De Bruyne, for example, don't need because you armband Haaland. Salah isn't performing, so you can go to a Van Dijk or pick another player playing on that day.
KDB will do great, but it's the same.
Is he worth
2.1 more over Foden at the moment?
Bowen, really. Captainable. So I think, Kane for me after Saturday is expendable. As much as I think he'll score points, the money it frees up, if I went Kane to a Foden, for example, the money it frees up turns Neco Williams into Saliba when I want to get him back.
Who would you captain Sunday 23rd as it stands?
Sunday the 23rd.
Spurs are at home to Newcastle, Arsenal away to Southampton.
Jesus.
But it's still a decent, Tottenham beat Newcastle 5-1 in April. Yeah. I'm sure that won't be the case again,
it's
obviously.
Different time of the year and what have you. But, I'm happy I'll just go Jesus.
Yeah, I probably would agree with that. But this Saturday, I think Kane's best. Can't argue that.
Yeah.
And my plan for a while has been to go Tony to Mitrovic this Saturday. If there's any doubt about Mitrovic, I don't think I can make that move. But I still want to because you've got Thursday night, which we'll talk about in a sec as well, where they're at home to Villa. I think for me, there's a number of players that I've looked at as alternatives to chaining Tony on. So I'll name a few of them now. So Odsonne Edouard at Crystal Palace is 7.4. It's cheap. He's playing at the moment. They've good run of fixtures. Not a captaincy because I would never pick him as captain over Zaha, for example. You've got obviously Anderson and Gahey at Palace on the Saturday. Christian Romero's in my thoughts. 7.8. We spoke about him a lot in pre-season. The returns aren't particularly there at the moment, but there are fixtures where I can see it for Christian Romero between now and the run-in. Mitrovic would be the favoured one for me at roundabout stat value if he gets the clearance from Marco Silva. That's still the move I'm likely to make on Saturday, and I would captain him. If he's not available, all I've currently got on Saturday is Neco Williams. I'm joking, he'll be binned on Friday. He's Maddison and Zaha against each other. Who would you captain out of them two?
Zaha.
I think on the ownership numbers at the moment, the answer's Maddison.
But I think Zaha scored more points. I mean, Leicester more likely to leak goals than Palace.
But Palace are leaking them as well, to be totally honest, Suj.
Yeah.
They're not looking fantastic. Zaha's ownership following, obviously, investment on Sunday is up to 37.9%. James Maddison is at 45.2%. Quite close. I think the home advantage is go Maddison.
My other option, James, on the table, which some might have, if they're sitting on Kane, which you mentioned in the top 1,000, 50%, so we'd assume that a lot of people own him, is I can come off him and go to Mo Salah on the Sunday and keep him for Man City, West Ham, Nottingham Forest away, captain him against West Ham and possibly even Forest, although Haaland's playing at home that day.
And go back.
And go back if I want to. I have plenty of options at that point.
I mean, all you're missing there is Kane at Man United. These are absolutely the sort of moves that you, with the volume of transfers you have left, should be considering.
And that's a premium. What it doesn't do with the Kane to Salah move is free me up any money to make other moves. Like I'm literally dry on budget. So at that point, I'm putting myself in a situation where that's the only move I'm going to make for a couple of weeks. But off the back of that, like that's the following day, I can go to more Arsenal assets at Southampton, for example, and so on. So there are options on the table. I just wish Arsenal were playing on Saturday this week because I could come off them and go back for the Southampton game.
Yes, it would have been handy probably if Arsenal had played this Saturday.
Captaincy this week. So you're recommending David Raya for me over Caicedo. I'll probably just stick with that than David Raya. You know the game better than me. I think
this is one where I'm almost certainly going to buy Dunk or Webster on Friday night. I do think Webster's okay in the team at the moment. Dunk is kind of 100% locked. I think Webster's probably at 95% or more at the moment. I don't see that changing particularly. I do intend currently to stay with Tony on captaincy though. Friday night. I've been here before, haven't I? Mm-hmm. I mean, I bought a new player. It feels justifiable to captain him. I think he's close enough, and I think both teams probably score, that I'll back Tony, I think, Friday night. Saturday, best option is Kane. As it stands for me, subject to what I end up doing, is probably going to be either Mitrovic or Maddison for captaincy, I think.
I'll be Kane.
And that's the right call. He's the best choice. Sunday?
Haaland.
Is this really where we're at? Liverpool away, just going, yep, Haaland. What about the Arsenal guys at Leeds?
Tempted, not going to lie, tempted with Jesus as well. That'll be quite an open game, I think.
I can see City going to Anfield and winning about 4-2. It'll be Haaland for me.
But I can see Arsenal going to Leeds and winning 3-1 or something like that, right? So
yes.
I don't think there's going to be... But between Jesus and Haaland at the weekend, I don't think there's going to be much in it. Haaland just has the potential to go mental. Although he was rubbish against Copenhagen yesterday.
You could also say he didn't put a foot wrong, Suj.
Yeah, it depends how you want to spin it, eh?
Tuesday, we've got Brighton against Forest and Palace against Wolves. What's your intention, Suj?
Casado is my only option, unless I go to a Crystal Palace asset, but I've got no plans to at the moment, so it would be Casado.
How much money you got in the bank?
0.1, nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you consider getting to a Palace defender on Saturday from Casado or something? Unless
I don't make the Kane to Salah move. No.
I don't suppose you can get near Max Kilman either, can you? I don't suppose.
No.
I think he's an interesting one for the next few, actually, Max Kilman. I don't think that's a terrible buy at all at 8 million, but it is a little bit more than your Andersons, Romeros and stuff. Intention for me on those fixtures right now would be the Brighton defender over Zaha for those fixtures. I think that's more one where I think, I really fancy the clean sheet and the passings here together. Next Wednesday night, I'll be on Mo, as long as he's fit for captaincy. Alternatives for me that night aren't brilliant. I won't have a lot of players next Wednesday night.
I'll be Van Dijk.
I think that's best. I think that's best over the Chelsea versus Brentford, and Tottenham obviously go to Old Trafford. They play each other. I think that's right. It's Liverpool, yeah, in spite. So I think Van Dijk, Salah, whatever you've got there, that's probably what you're going with. Next Thursday's really interesting. We'll speak about it obviously more again next week. Fulham against Villa, Leicester against Leeds. The idea is Maddison or Mitrovic, but as it stands, I might get there and have none and just be captain Paulinho by default.
Me too.
It could land that way.
As it stands, I've only got Paulinho playing that day, so for me at the moment it's Paulinho.
Yeah, it could land that way for me, actually. So between the two of them, I'd probably slightly favour Maddison over Mitrovic if they're both fit and available.
Cool. Should we get into some questions that we've had on Twitter?
Go on, Suj. Knock it out of the park, mate.
Let's see. Thank you for your questions on Twitter. I'm going to go to the bottom and work my way up. JT, best replacement for Brennan Johnson. What price, Brennan Johnson? 7? 6.5? 7?
Best replacement for Brennan Johnson? Anyone you can afford, basically, currently. I think, look, you've got... I feel like that's one where he's always playing. He is on the penalties. I honestly would probably keep that till after Tuesday. And then you've got your pick of a lot of teams from the Wednesday. How much available in the bank, Suj? Did it say?
Didn't say.
What is he? 7.2, I think, isn't he, Brennan Johnson?
Brighton defender, Webster.
Paulinho on the Thursday next week if you don't have... If you can get up, ironically, actually, it's probably too late. I was going to say one of the Leicester centre backs. There's nothing at Villa that appeals to me. Fixtures are difficult next midweek, to be honest. The right answer in many cases here is Brighton players like McAllister, if that's affordable, for example. Paulinho is the obvious one if you don't have. Otherwise, cheap centre back. I would even consider. Honestly, from next Wednesday night, Bournemouth's last 5, Southampton at home, West Ham away, Tottenham at home, Leeds away, Everton at home. I actually think there's points there for them for a cheapy kind of 6.6, 6.5 Metham centre side. I'd rather go for centre side. As the new signing, I think he's more likely to stay in the team. You look then, you go, fixtures are tough. Southampton at home, Everton at home, it can be something there. Those two fixtures could be clean sheet, right? West Ham away and Tottenham at home, it's not impossible to get past and two in those two games.
Yep.
So I think like there could be something there, and that's actually putting a little bit more money in the bank. Am I overly recommending a Bournemouth defensive player? No. But it might offer you a solution for another better transfer, possibly.
Let's go to DB. It's a long one, James. So,
price is Fabian Schär.
No idea.
That's an entry point next Wednesday. He's 7 million. That could be one, actually. I was just looking. So maybe that. The problem with him is he's not 100% secure at the moment, but he's playing all the games as it stands. Botman's kind of in and out. The team is a little bit confusing. Schär is always playing at the moment. He is also injury prone, and for a set of fixtures where it gets clustered, he's more likely to potentially miss out. That might be one. Fabian Schär, 7 million.
Okay.
Might do you if you've got no money in the bank next Wednesday, maybe.
DB is currently only on Haaland from Man City and very worried about the last 4 games. His back three is Dyer, Anderson, Saliba. Salah, Paulinho, Maddison, Zaha in the middle, and Jesus and Kane with Haaland up top.
Say that midfield again.
Salah, Paulinho, Maddison, Zaha. Wants to get more City, but doesn't see any hop-on, hop-offs to get back to City.
Yeah,
difficult.
Exactly this. So I think potentially one idea is Maddison and Foden. Foden's 0.1 cheaper than Maddison. So that's obviously affordable. And I can understand why you don't want to sell James Maddison. Absolutely, because I think he's arguably best captaincy next Thursday. But if that booking comes, you've got your excuse. That's your open point, if you will. Defensively, who's he got? Saliba, Anderson, and who?
Eric Dyer.
Yeah, so money-wise, it's going to be a problem there. I wouldn't stress about Cancelo, but I'd be looking at opportunities. Has he got Salah, did you say? So that's another one, maybe Saturday 22nd. Like, if Salah's not in the team against Forest, just move to Cancelo on that day. So I'd be aware, you need to have your finger on the pulse for these moves, potentially. It's not a stress to get the City players in for Liverpool away, let's be honest. No. But I think opportunity might arise there.
Neil wants to know which defender or midfielder scores the most points between now and the World Cup, under 10.1 million.
Defender or midfielder, under 10.1 million?
Foden.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
He is.
He's just on form, and exactly what the previous question had said. Like those last 4 fixtures are brilliant as well.
Didn't play yesterday as well.
They're through in the Champions League, so there's no reason why. There's always a reason with Pep, but I genuinely think, and we've been saying this for a while, these final fixtures for City look much safer for their best players than they normally do.
Dan Stewart says, all right, fellas, this is something we've discussed, but maybe let's summarise. Always plan to get VVD for the West Ham game, but with the defence being shambles, would it be wise to go to Salah for that 3-game period instead, also considering leaving it altogether?
No, I think I would go VVD. Again, a little bit like Bournemouth. The 2 difficult fixtures there on paper, arguably, are West Ham game and the Tottenham game. I'm definitely at passing 2 in them 2, as it stands. The other 3, Forest away, Leeds at home, Southampton at home. This is what I'm saying. That run, as bad as they are at the moment, that run feels to me like it could start from next Wednesday. So it would, if I was buying new, it'd be VVD at this stage.
Sam still has Boubacar Kamara's best replacement, similar price.
But that's got to go. It's not,
what is he?
It's not coming back.
Point.
6-8-ish. So you're anything in the bank?
No, it doesn't say so.
Paulinho, the obvious again. If you don't have Casado, arguably, playing, actually, yeah. Or can you get up to like the 7 million guys to Fabian Schär? McAllister 7.4. If you've got it in the bank, is better.
Michael Haaland wants a transfer check from us on whether these seem reasonable. He's going from David Raya to Jose Sarr on Saturday, which covers him Tuesday night captaincy.
Just keep an eye on team news, because I said this to you on Monday. He was moaning about he might have a broken hand.
Cool.
Just keep an eye on that. But actually, yes, reasonable. Next.
Brennan Johnson to McAllister on Friday, just because he can't be bothered to look at Brennan Johnson in his team anymore.
Only if it's for captaincy. Otherwise...
He's got David Raya already as it stands, because he's moving off that on Saturday,
right?
Yeah,
of course. McAllister is definitely a better option than Johnson. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And finally, Tony to Koulibaly or Thiago Silva, one or the other.
With Fofana's injury, Koulibaly looks better, but I still think it could be in any game he just goes, I'm going to play Silva and Chalobah in a back four, or Azpilicueta. Azpilicueta played the first game for Potter in a back four, although presumably he's going to have to do a bit of covering for Reece James if he's out for a while. I'm not keen on Chelsea defensively now for this run. I think next two is pretty good, but beyond that, I don't think there'll be a lot there. I don't even think passing tiers will be there.
Esquivo says, if you're buying a defender this weekend to hold until overhaul, who would it be? It's a replacement for Reece James, if that's any help. But we don't know if Reece James is out.
No, maybe he wants to get rid of Reece James anyway. I think we can probably assume from the visuals seen last night that he's certainly not going to play this weekend. Be very surprised. Who knows? Let's wait till we get the prognosis. I presume that value is going to rule you out of the likes of VVD and Cancelo, for example. Saliba, still brilliant price. Obviously, if you don't have, there's every chance you will. I think Romero is worth putting in the conversation. I think the two Palace centre-backs, I still, despite those numbers on Sunday against Leeds, I think I would still have the Anderson preference. I think Max Kilman actually is quite an interesting one for the next few. And obviously the Brighton guys, to be honest, is the standout because there's probably two captaincies in this next week.
Emre says he needs to drop either Tielemans to Tyler Adams or to Paulinho to give him enough money to dump Tony for Kane on Saturday. Which one do you think he should chop? Tielemans to Tyler Adams or Paulinho?
I would just... He may not see it now, but that extra 0.7 or whatever the difference is might be handy for something else. I think it's close enough that we'd just go with a cheaper one.
Paulinho?
Yep.
Yeah, and their two fixtures are decent, right? Bournemouth and then who do they play in the game after that?
Villa is next Thursday night, but obviously Adams plays the same night at Leicester. I do think Adams will probably outscore Paulinho as the season goes on, by the way, but I mean at 6.6 you just can't be arguing with that.
Shadebi says, what about Brennan, Johnson and Salah to Bowen and Foden on Sunday? And we'll give him captaincy for Monday the 24th as well.
I could not be selling Mo Salah.
Before West Ham at home.
I just wouldn't want to sell him against Manchester City, to be honest. So I didn't even hear anything else in the question bar selling Salah, and I wouldn't right now, in spite of his form.
Moving Tony on Saturday, says Joe, Amrabat man, to Zaha or Mitrovic?
Mitrovic preferable, I think.
If he's in the team.
Yeah, because the other thing as well, think of it like this. You might be sitting there with Maddison. You think, I've got Maddison Thursday night. But if Maddison gets booked on Saturday, which you can't know when you make your decision, then Mitrovic suddenly looks the best captaincy next Thursday night. So if Silva gives the all clear, I think the answer there is Mitrovic. But you obviously need the information.
And last but not least...
That said, it could be if he's got no Brighton, then Zaha looks outstanding on Tuesday. So it is a little bit dependent on what the rest of your team is.
FPL Stephen Barnes says, Manchester City, should we be looking to bring more into our teams from the 22nd of October onwards, even if there's no opportunity for fixture gain? That's the Brighton at home fixture, just because of that run-in. There's
every case for that. So, I mean, if you take that, let's say Maddison doesn't get booked in the next two, right? And there's every chance he won't. I think you get to that point and you look at it and you go, right, I'm not going to captain Maddison again. He's got Wolves away, Everton away, West Ham away in his final four, and also Manchester City at home. Captaincy completely off the table for any of them. What's the expectation? Do we look at that and then go, right, so Foden's got Brighton at home, Leicester away, Fulham at home, Brentford at home. How much does Foden outscore Maddison by over that period? There's a couple of things to factor in. One, how many more points would you want on that transfer, as an example? Two, do you think Phil Foden starts all four games? Because suddenly if you remove one and Maddison's got an extra fixture, I think you start questioning if Foden does even outscore Maddison. So as much as it's there on paper and as much as I can sit here now and say, yeah, do you know what? The way the fixtures land, I see no reason why the likes of Cancelo, KDB, Foden, Haaland won't start all four of those Man City games. You can probably bet somewhere down that line that that's wrong. Can't you?
Yeah.
So, but on the face of it, yes, I think those sort of moves should be considered. Like I've said, if you've got Mo and he's not playing against Forest, do you want to move that immediately? Then be snappy about it on the day on Saturday 22nd. And it might be that you think, well, I want to captain Mo Salah at home to Leeds on Saturday 29th. Yeah, but you don't because Haaland's playing Leicester. Yeah, but you want to captain Mo Salah on Sunday the 6th away to Tottenham. If you do, that's fine. I think it's an open week. By the way, I'm leaning more and more towards captain Jared Bowen that day at home to Crystal Palace. You might think, Salah at home to Southampton, final Saturday. Again, Haaland at home to Brentford, and you see the team. So it makes him expendable, I think, next Saturday, for example, Suj. But I would probably just stick with him, I think, in the case of Mo Salah. But after Wednesday, yes, there's a possibility I may not captain him again. And it might be that if he looks shit in the next two, I go, hang on a minute. If he's not in that team Saturday, there's a decision to be made, possibly.
Cool. That's a wrap, James, for this episode of Planet SkyFF. Listeners, we give it a plug each and every week. If you are a keen Sky player, you may want to support the show by heading over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. You get access to our Slack channel, where there's a load of banter and chat about
interestingly, Sky. I was just looking through the fixtures again next Wednesday night, and if I'm in this position, someone else must be in this position as well. Bournemouth for Southampton, no ownership. Brentford against Chelsea, assuming I sell Tony, no ownership. Liverpool against West Ham, Salah and Bowen. Newcastle against Everton, no ownership. Manchester United against Tottenham, no ownership. So if Salah wasn't in the team against West Ham, suddenly I'm left with just Bowen. And I wonder if I need
Bowen versus Kamikaze.
Yeah. But he doesn't score away from home, mate.
No, he doesn't. You're right.
And I wonder if that means I should have a rethink. One player I haven't mentioned is obviously really highly owned at the moment, Kieran Trippier. And I'd rather captain, say, Trips against Everton if it came to it like that, rather than Bowen at Liverpool, despite where we're at. It might be that Newcastle, I need to have a second look. There you go. We'll leave it on that.
Nice. Listeners, hope you enjoyed this episode of Planet Sky.
I've just talked myself into Callum Wilson, haven't I? Don't do that.
Listeners, stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Good luck this week. Cue music, please, man child.